command ceremony between General Charles Flynn and General Ronald Clark, and the retirement ceremony in honor of General Flynn. The host for today's ceremony is Admiral Samuel Paparo, Commander, U.S. Indo-Pacific Command. We'd like to extend a sincere welcome to our distinguished guests. Governor Josh Green, State of Hawaii. Congressman Ed Case, 1st Congressional District of Hawaii. Linda Lingle, former Governor of Hawaii. General Randy George, U.S. Army Chief of Staff. Admiral Samuel Paparo, Commander, U.S. Indo-Pacific Command. Mayor Richard Blangiardi, City and County of Honolulu. General Kevin Schneider, Commander, Pacific Air Forces. General Retired David Bramlett, former Commander, U.S. Army Forces Command, and Mrs. Nora Bramlett. General Retired Larry Ellis, former Commander, U.S. Army Forces Command. General Sonwit, Royal Thai Chief of Defense. General Mao, Cambodian Chief of Army. Lieutenant General Ko, Vice Chief of Staff, Republic of Korean Army. Major General Neo, Commanding General, Singapore Army, and wife Jessica. Major General King, New Zealand Chief of Army. Major General Terumi, Japanese Director of General Operations Support and Training. Major General Monteser, Bangladesh Commanding General and Area Commander Logistics, and his wife Ishrat. Also welcoming other allies and partners from across the UK, France, and the Indo-Pacific. Also here, Lieutenant General James Glenn, Commander Marine Forces Pacific. Lieutenant General Retired Frank Wierzinski, former Commander, USARPAC. Representative Trish Lachica, Representative, State of Hawaii. Mr. Gil Tam, Civilian Aide to the Secretary of the Army, and Mrs. Noe Kalipi, Civilian Aide to the Secretary of the Army. Also, e komo mai, or welcome to Council Generals, other general officers, members of the Senior Executive Service, senior government leaders from across the military, senior leaders from organizations that support our soldiers, families, mentors, and friends. Also, a special welcome to the Flynn family, Mrs. Kathleen Flynn, their children Molly, Sean, and Tara, and General Flynn's brothers, Jack and Joe Flynn. Also, a special welcome to the islands to the Clark family and friends, Mrs. Simona Clark and their children, Matt Clark and his wife, Casey Clark, and Megan Clark and her fiance, Ryan Krausner. The Honorable John Turner and his wife, Mrs. Diane Turner, Mr. Percy Jackson and his wife, Mrs. Carolyn Jackson, and Mrs. Dolores Williams. And all of our distinguished guests present today with us, we are honored to have you with us. And a round of applause for our distinguished guests. Music for today's ceremony provided by the 25th Infantry Division Band under the direction of Chief Warrant Officer 3 Davis. The Color Guard is composed of members from the Sergeant Audie Murphy Club and is led by Command Sergeant Major Jason Smith, United States Army Pacific. The Salute Battery is from 3-7 Field Artillery and led by Captain Gonzalez and Sergeant First Class Brown. On the field before you are the colors and senior leaders representing the units of United States Army Pacific. From the 8th Army, Lieutenant General Lanive and Command Sergeant Major Bulmer. From 1st Corps, Lieutenant General McFarland and Command Sergeant Major Mobar. From U.S. Army Japan, Major General Womack and Command Sergeant Major Weaver. From the 2nd Infantry Division, Major General Lombardo and Command Sergeant Major Franco. From the 25th Infantry Division, Major General Evans and Command Sergeant Major Curry. From the 11th Airborne Division, Major General Hilbert and Command Sergeant Major Hansen. From the 8th Theater Sustainment Command, Major General Gardner and Command Sergeant Major Morrison. From the 9th Mission Support Command, Brigadier General Trombley and Command Sergeant Major Ramirez. From the 19th Expeditionary Support Command, Brigadier General Pack and Command Sergeant Major Green. From the 18th Medical Command, Brigadier General Cox and Command Sergeant Major Dobbins. From the 94th Army Air and Missile Defense Command, Brigadier General Costello and Command Sergeant Major Hart. From the 311th Signal Command, Brigadier General Meisler and Command Sergeant Major Stroud. From the 351st Civil Affairs Command, Brigadier General Horton and Command Sergeant Bodmer. From the 1st Multi-Domain Task Force, Colonel Keene and Command Sergeant Major Camacho. From the 3rd Multi-Domain Task Force, Colonel Rose and Command Sergeant Major Arroyo. From the 5th Security Force Assistance Brigade, Colonel Teague and Command Sergeant Major Smith. From the 5th Battlefield Coordination Detachment, Colonel Myers and Command Sergeant Major Cook. From the 413th Contracting Support Brigade, Colonel Cooper and Command Sergeant Major Calzada. From the 500th MI Brigade, Colonel Callahan and Command Sergeant Major Santiago Rivera. From the 96th Infantry Brigade, Colonel LeClaire and Command Sergeant Major Daly. From the 402 Army Field Support Brigade, Colonel Sugai and Command Sergeant Major Ortiz Escalera. And finally, from the USARPAC Headquarters and Headquarters Battalion, Lieutenant Colonel Razak and Command Sergeant Major Sega. The commander of troop for today's ceremony is Major General James Bartholomews, Chief of Staff, United States Army Pacific. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the arrival of the official party and remain standing for the invocation. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Patterson with the invocation.
You may be seated. Let me say a few words. We're here with the Royal Order of Kamehameha, Dr. Guansin with the Cathedral of St. Andrews. What a privilege and a pleasure it is to be a part of this wonderful event, to be here on this very historic field, the Palm Circle. I was going to say Circle of the Palms, but pray with me as we ask for blessings on this historic day and this historic occasion, and our two generals and this chain of, not chain of command, but this change of command. Would you pray with me now Mai ke aloha mai no ke akua. Almighty God, we commend to your gracious care and keeping all the men and women of our armed forces of the United States at home and abroad. Today, a special prayer for the command of General Flynn and the U.S. Army in the Pacific all these years. And now with this change of command this morning to General Ronald P. Clark. This morning, God, a special blessing, please, on this change of command. General Charles A. Flynn will relinquish his command to General Ronald P. Clark in the circle of life that has no beginning or no end, and which is eternal and everlasting. Both generals here today are tried and true soldiers whose outstanding life and legacies are well known, standing head and shoulders above many, but always humble and merciful, sacrificial and courageous to enter the many battles in life and engage the dark injustices and adversarial forces, the multitude of challenges, many in the world today. Here, prayers now ascend high and ascend higher this very morning, here on this plain of victory, this prayer circle in the palms this morning, replete with historic dignity and honor of all those who have gone before. Now may our prayers be carried forth on the sacred breath of all our ohana, here and in the spirit world. Respect and honor. Prayers on this sacred change of command. We speak their names again to be heard. General Charles A. Flynn and General Ronald P. Clark. May their names resound in the uplands and roar in the oceans, be heard in the halauloa of the ancients and the ancestors, and be the light of inspiration and hope for 1,000 years. For the sake of the benevolent, merciful, and just mission, purpose, and presence of the U.S. Army in the Pacific. And again, prayers now to guard, guide, and protect, so as to take every opportunity to promote peace and freedom, human dignity and well-being, the cause of human existence, from our God who wills the well-being of all of humanity and all of creation. Oh God, we are yours today. Ua mau ke ea o ka aina I ka pono. The life of the land is perpetuated in righteousness. All these things we pray. Ma ka inoa o ka makua, a me ke keiki, a me ka uhane hamolele, a mama, ua noa, ua lele. Amene, amene. Lele ulie, lele vai, vai lele ai ke au. E kane mea hane, ne he ia I kalani, ne he ia. Pi kana kalani, hemo ka haumia o ka ino. Lele ulie, lele vai, lele ulie, lele vai. E vai lele ai ke au, I kane me hane, I nehe ia I kalani, nehe ia pi kana I kalani.
Mahalo, Dr. Patterson. Please direct your attention to the right. Lei is being presented to General Flynn's wife, Kathleen, and their children, Molly, Sean, and Tara. On behalf of the soldiers, professional civilians, and families of USARPAC, as a token of our appreciation for their support to our One Team Ohana. And if we look over to the left, Lei are now being presented to General Clark's wife, Simona, and children Matthew and Megan, on behalf of the soldiers, the professional civilians, and families of USARPAC, as a token of joy and friendship, welcoming them to our One Team Ohana. And at this time, Captain Gonzalez, the commanding officer of the Salute Battery, will now present General Flynn a shell casing to commemorate his retirement. Thank you, Captain Gonzalez. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the honors to our nation and remain standing for the Hawaii State Song. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated and remain seated as Admiral Paparo conducts the change of command ceremony. In a time-honored tradition, General Flynn will pass the organizational colors to Admiral Paparo, who will then pass them to General Clark, signifying the transfer of command of the United States Army Pacific. They'll be assisted by Command Sergeant Major Schmidt, the Command Sergeant Major of United States Army Pacific, who is the keeper of the colors. Under the provisions of Army Regulation 600-20, the undersigned assumes command of the United States Army Pacific Command, signed Ronald P. Clark, General, United States Army, commanding. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Chief of Staff of the Army, General Randy George.
Good morning, everybody. Keep waiting for the rain to stop. Doesn't look like it's gonna, so thanks for the tent, whoever did that. So, first, I know Congressman Case is out here, and it's good to see you somewhere other than D.C. Great being out here. I do want to thank Governor Green, and I know there's a whole bunch of leaders here from Hawaii. There's a reason. It's obviously not the weather that people like to come out to Hawaii. But for all that you do to support our soldiers and families out here and make sure that we can train and be ready for whatever our nation calls us to do. Admiral Paparo, Pappy, great to see you. I appreciate your leadership out here. We all appreciate your leadership, and I know USARPAC specifically has appreciated your leadership, so it's great to see you. Also great to see there's a lot of Army chiefs that are out here. I think we got some CHODs. And I'll talk a little bit about that. But Charlie, I know that's a testament to your leadership and all you've done to help out here, pull everybody together. But I appreciate all of you traveling here and joining us. So I think change of command, and I'm going to talk a lot about General Flynn this morning, but it's first and foremost a recognition of all of that our troops have done and will continue to do. And so recognition of the men and women of U.S. Army Pacific, and it's not just about those on the parade field here today, but all the soldiers that are serving right now across the Indo-Pacific that are out there training right now somewhere and building capacity with our allies and partners. And under General Charlie Flynn's leadership, USARPAC has transformed our expectations of what a theater army is capable of. Charlie has forged a USARPAC formation that is first and foremost tough and hardworking. In the past 4 years, they have planned, coordinated, and executed more than 200 bilateral and multilateral military exercises in more than 90 countries. In addition, the activation and reflagging of units in Alaska as the 11th Airborne Division demonstrated their organizational agility and commitment to dominating ground combat in the harsh terrain of the Arctic. Beyond training missions, USARPAC was called upon to respond to several relief efforts, including the disaster relief in the wake of the tragic Maui fires last year. General Flynn has forged a USARPAC formation that is innovative. I'm excited for the work that 2nd Brigade 25th ID is already doing to transform and contact, and I know the Tropic Lightning Division will step on the gas in the coming weeks and months as part of our second iteration of that effort and help us transform our entire Army. The integration and experimentation with the Army's newest formation, the Multi-Domain Task Force, demonstrates this organization's creativity and your ability to adapt to the modern battlefield in unforgiving environments. Finally, Charlie, you built a formation that is lethal and cohesive. There is no better partner than the U.S. Army, and while our adversaries are increasingly working together, it is the troopers of U.S. Army Pacific who are continuously transforming to build lethal and cohesive teams that contribute to deterrence. I think the best example of this has been the creation and expansion of the Joint Pacific Multi-Regional Training Center, or JPMRC, which enhances close relationships we already have with our allies and partners, increases our readiness, and continues to improve the lethality of our formations while operating in areas of potential conflict. The employment of multi-domain task forces forward in areas like Japan, the Philippines, Malaysia, Palau, and Australia included deploying long-range precision fires and marked the first such deployment of an Army anti-ship missile system. And land forces of the U.S., Japan, and Philippines held the first ever trilateral military conference in Tokyo, working together to promote a safe, stable, and secure region. Charlie, this team has accomplished all this and more under your command. USARPAC is gritty, determined, smart, creative, and a spirited team because they have taken on the traits of their commander. It is clear to me that you have poured your heart into the United States Army Pacific, just like you and Kathleen have poured your hearts into the Army for more than 3 decades. You brought energy, vision, and a will to win to USARPAC that will endure. You've personally redefined what land power can and must do to contribute in this paramount theater. Furthermore, your genuine and sincere appreciation for our partners and allies has laid the foundation of trust and respect we enjoy today and must have to win tomorrow. Charlie, you're a great friend, a warrior, a phenomenal leader, and the consummate warfighter. Your drive, courage, and relentless focus on training energized our troopers to get in position to compete, fight, and win. And Kathleen, you have steadfastly advocated for our Army families, always with an eye on ensuring they had the right information to help them thrive on their Army journey. I want to personally thank you for all that you've done, and I've gotten to see some of that up front, especially in the last couple years. So I'd like a big round of applause for Kathleen. Thank you so much. Now this team starts a new chapter under the command of General Ron Clark. I'm excited for USARPAC because I know General Clark will bring the same intensity, ingenuity, and focused leadership to this theater. And Simona, I know you too will advocate for and continue to represent our families just like you've always done for these last 3 decades. Ron, there's no more important mission for our Army. Today, our adversaries are working together to challenge us in every theater. Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea represent an axis of upheaval that is increasingly collaborating to threaten the free world. We understand how the battlefield is changing, and we have a sense of urgency about transforming our Army to meet the needs of our nation in today's volatile operating environment. To the soldiers, civilians, and all the members of the USARPAC team, we look forward to seeing you stay busy training in the jungles, busy training in the dirt, in the snow, and in the mountains, busy building lethal and cohesive teams that can handle the rigors of combat. I know you remain committed to honing your warfighting skills, enforcing standards and discipline, and living the values that define our Army culture. You all illustrate the grit and character that define our reputation, and I'm extremely proud of this team. Charlie, for all your powerful leadership has accomplished, well done. You set a great path, and Ron, we're very excited to have you come on board to be the USARPAC commander. One team, this will defend.
Thank you, General George. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Commander, United States Indo-Pacific Command, Admiral Samuel Paparo.
Good morning and aloha. Really honored to be a part of this today. Such an important day for United States Indo-PACOM, for U.S. Army Pacific, for the Flynn family, for the Clark family, and aloha to everybody here. To General Randy George, thanks for traveling so far. I shouldn't say thanks. I know it's such a huge matter of duty with USARPAC being such of primary importance to the United States Army. Once again, I'll just pile on. Greetings to our state leaders of Hawaii, my dear friends, Governor Josh, Congressman Ed Case, Mayor Blangiardi, and former Governor Linda Lingle. Thank you so much. And then so many leaders from the State House as well. And so many of our allies and partners from across the region, General Songwit, General Hsu, General Chung, General Mao, General Neo, Major General King, to all of our allies and partners, to our Consulate General Corps, thank you to all for joining. Thank you to our veterans here. For those of you that are traveling here from out of town, if you're aware of what the veteran community here, it's unlike anything in any of the other 49 states to experience what the veteran tradition is here in the state of Hawaii. Thank you so much, including maybe the Dean of the veteran environment here, General David Bramlett and his wife Nora. Thank you so much, and General Larry Ellis. I want to thank the USARPAC team who put this event together. It's a testament to your commitment to excellence here on this iconic Palm Circle here. And please, let's give a round of applause to the soldiers of United States Army Pacific. Hua! I want to thank Charlie's families, starting with his brothers who are here, Jack and Joe Flynn. I can only imagine what a lively and competitive environment it must have been in Rogues Island, growing up in a family with 9 siblings in a small 3-bedroom house with an Army Master Sergeant as a family. Thanks to you for making the trip here and supporting your youngest brother. Are you the youngest brother in the family? Damn near. Oh, there you are. Okay, yeah. I could see he had to be hitting the weight room all the time. Thanks. And now on to Charlie and Kathleen's 3 children. Oldest daughter Molly lives in Denver, following in her mother's footsteps in the health profession. Those of you who think that being in the military is the nation's most trusted profession are wrong. It's actually the healthcare profession, and nursing to be specific. And so Molly is a nurse. Middle son Sean is married to Dr. Rachel. Sean's an Army captain working at the 18th Airborne Corps at Fort Liberty. Fort Liberty is also where Charlie did company command, battalion command, brigade command. So Charlie's clearly following in Charlie's footsteps. Youngest daughter Tara's living in Washington, D.C., also following in Kathleen's footsteps as a nurse. And the Flynn family's success and achievements are not short of any of the sacrifices to get here. 16 PCS moves, 13 of those moves meant changes in middle school and high school, probably 3 high schools each for each of the children, and yet outsized success for each child, an absolute testament to the superior parenting of Charlie and Kathleen. And Kathleen, you've been a rock, no doubt a testament to the power of being raised in the Philadelphia area. in the ever-coming rivalry between Philadelphia and New York. But all kidding aside, you're absolutely the source of Charlie's motivation to serve. You've raised 3 incredible children, and you've been such a leader here in Honolulu, supporting thousands of military families, as Chief said. 35 years, a career as a nurse, most especially in neonatal intensive care units, volunteering here in an array of roles: soccer coach, swimming, ice hockey enthusiast, volunteer in classrooms, CDCs, and then a member with Maureen in Armed Services YMCA boards and mentoring so many soldier and family readiness groups. Really too much. You are a national treasure, Kathleen, and you've really left a mark here, and we will miss you. So thank you very much, and thank you for your service to the nation, and you have served. So please, a round of applause for the Flynn family. So Charlie and I arrived, I think, within 2 months of one another here in Hawaii, and we have gone back a long, long way. Since 2009, we've known each other since then, and we've worked kind of in roles alongside each other all the way. And so you have been a friend, a peer, at times a mentor, and we've linked arms many, many times together and gotten through many difficult times together. And as I think of all that all the drive that you've done, I think about the tenacity and the relentless drive. And for many of you junior officers, when you're embarking upon a career and you think about the iconic book that's going to help teach you about your service, you've probably picked up Anton Meyer's iconic book, Once an Eagle, and the story of Sam Damon. And this is such an iconic book of being an Army officer. And it starts out with Sam Damon's career first in the First World War. And it might interest you to know that all of the rest of that book's service of that dynamic officer is in the Indo-Pacific theater. His dynamism and his innovation in the Pacific, in the Second World War, in Korea, and in Vietnam. And here, Charlie has shown such tenacious willing into being so many initiatives within USARPAC, as Chief has discussed. The transformation of U.S. Army Alaska Headquarters into the 11th Airborne Division, recognizing Alaska's Arctic Warriors as a premier contingency operations in extreme environments, performing so incredibly well. The transformation into Joint Pacific Multinational Readiness Center, and the conception as a combat training center, just his innovative drive, adding this area to California and Louisiana, and his restlessness. And this restlessness, adding this trait, which is so near and dear to me, delivering to so many multinational operations, so key to us, across so many domains to increase our operational depth and our operational endurance across so many domains, adding to land power, all domain power across the Pacific. Power from the land domain into the maritime domain, the space, the air, the information, the cyber domain, and this is the coin of the realm. This is the coin of cross-domain operations, and this is the key advantage of the joint force. I and the nation owe a tremendous gratitude to Charlie for 39 years of selfless service to the nation, and I owe you, Charlie, a debt of gratitude for so many years of friendship, and we'll have so many years in the future of friendship. We are indeed kindred spirit. Your energy and drive will be missed, but not by me, because you and I are going to continue on. So, ladies and gentlemen, for my good friend, General Charlie Flynn, a round of applause. Don't cry for USARPAC, because they're not going to miss a step. because Ron and Simona Clark are here. I'd like to recognize Ron's family members. They have 2 children, son Matt and his wife Casey. Matt's an attorney, lives in Seattle, a practitioner of the rule of law, a much honored profession. Daughter Megan and her fiance Ryan. Megan is a 4-year medical student at the University of Arkansas. So many of our service members are in the practice of law and healthcare, kind of demonstrating the power of being a military child. And Simona, we realize how much you and your children have sacrificed in your superior parenting, and we look forward to getting to know you and welcome you in the embrace of this Hawaii family so much. And so a warm welcome, please, to the Clark family. Ron, after your trials in Washington, D.C., welcome back to the operational world. As you're so well aware, with so much experience here in the Indo-Pacific, is that your background, you're tailor-made for this duty. But you'll also know that the security environment has worsened since the last time you were here, just 3 short years ago. Given this dangerous security environment, the increasingly connected transactional symbiosis of our would-be adversaries, the PRC's increasingly aggressive behavior, the increasing connections between Russia and North Korea, we need the team to be ready. You are precisely the right leader for this assignment and hand-picked. We'll value your strategic understanding of the global environment, your intimate knowledge of the Indo-Pacific, and we need you to be exactly the leader that God made you to be and that your experience in the Army brought you to be right now. To the entire USARPAC team, including all of the 106,000 soldiers and civilians carrying out our duty to be ready, thanks to every one of you and for everything that you do each and every day to the Joint Force. To the NCO and the Enlisted Corps, the backbone of the Joint Force. Charlie, Ron, and I are all children of enlisted leaders. Charlie's dad is an Army Master Sergeant, Ron's dad is an Army First Sergeant, and my own father is an enlisted Marine. Don't think it's a surprise that Charlie and Ron are up here today. It all starts with that upbringing and those values. To our NCOs and our senior enlisted leaders of the Joint Force, thank you. And to everybody, we're honored to serve amongst you. And as Charlie signs off on every single note and every single word, one team. Thank you.
Thank you, Admiral. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the new commander of the United States Army Pacific, General Ronald Clark.
Trying to figure out whose binders these are. First, to echo the welcome and thanks of both General George and Admiral Paparo, I'd like to thank all of our local elected leaders who are here today, our community partners, our friends, allies, and partners from the region, general officers, flag officers, ladies and gentlemen. It is the most important day of my 36 plus years of service today to be here on this field with you. And it is the privilege of my professional life to serve in USARPAC headquarters as the commander. I offer you today my very best effort every day to serve in your ranks. Ladies and gentlemen, before we go any further in this wonderful ceremony, the soldiers you see on the field before you, the commanders, command sergeants, majors, colors, non-commissioned officers, the salute battery from 3-7 Field Artillery, the Tropic Lightning Band, please give these soldiers a round of applause and thank them for their service. They represent 106,000 soldiers throughout the region that belong to USARPAC. Admiral Paparo, thank you for the kind words. It's my honor to serve with you. Picking up the phone to have a conversation with you will have a different tint now than it did before, because in my last job when I picked up the phone to call the comm, it was normally not good news. But sir, again, thank you for the warm welcome, you and Maureen. We really look forward to serving with you. To our Chief of Staff Army, Randy George, my friend, thank you and Patty for all that you do for soldiers across the globe. You are the example of what right looks like for leaders in our formation. You always have been. You've been the leader that we've all, as peers, have looked up to. So it's no surprise to anyone that you're leading our Army in transformation, in contact, in a way that will save lives. Ladies and gentlemen, round of applause for the Army leadership. Charlie and Kathleen, our next door neighbors for a while when Charlie was the deputy commander and I was the chief. Best avocado tree on Palm Circle. Simona and I would like to offer our heartfelt thanks for you for 39 years of service to our nation. Your efforts with the USARPAC Ohana have made our country safer, our allies and partners stronger, and our Army continues to be strong for the efforts that you've put in every day as a commander of USARPAC. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for Charlie and Kathleen. Thank you for your service. The difficult part of this ceremony is I've already given a speech about my family, but not a problem. I'll get corrected on this later. As you know, Simona has been working on that for years with me. This is our 24th and I'm sure best PCS move. Simona, you've never wavered, never complained. More importantly, the soldiers and family members who you've been blessed to serve with will appreciate your return a lot more than mine. I love you. You are my rock. Thank you for allowing me to be your kite. To my children, to their spouses slash spouse demotable, I guess, Ryan, fiance, I don't know how to describe that. Thank you for your support of my chosen profession. Your support has never wavered. You've been terrific children, even better adults. We are so proud of you, and thank you for your service to our nation and all you've done to support our soldiers and families as well. To our neighbors and community partners here in Hawaii, we are honored to rejoin the Ohana in a place that we love so much. And we want to continue to build upon Charlie and Kathleen's strong relationships with the relationships that we've enjoyed over the 8 years of service we've spent on this island. To our allies, partners, and friends across the region, we live in extraordinary times. However, we are fortunate to have you as extraordinary partners. USARPAC remains committed to strengthening our partnerships as we build our collective readiness and relationships built on a bedrock of mutual respect and trust. Finally, to the soldiers, civilians, and families of USARPAC. Together, we will live up to the proud legacy of our motto, One Team, as we continue to build upon the positional advantage in the region and prevail. Mahalo to everyone for attending this ceremony. You honor us with your presence. One team, this will defend.
Thank you, General Clark. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now observe one of the oldest and most tradition-rich ceremonies in the United States Army, honoring a service member as they retire from a long and honorable career in service of this great nation. With this ceremony, we celebrate General Flynn and his family for their more than 39 years of faithful service to our great country and the United States Army. Although General Flynn is retiring from active duty today, he and his family are forever a part of our military family and the USARPAC One Team Ohana. Ladies and gentlemen, presiding over today's ceremony is General Retired David Bramlett, who will retire General Flynn. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated during the awards presentation. As General Retired Bramlett will now present Mrs. Flynn with the Distinguished Public Service Medal, and the citation reads, "For extraordinary contributions while serving the soldiers, civilians, and families of United States Army Pacific from June 2021 to July 2024, Mrs. Flynn made many personal sacrifices to improve the morale, welfare, and quality of life across the military community and the families of Hawaii. Her genuine kindness, compassion, and concerned leadership touched the hearts and affected lives of so many. She played an influential role in advancing the missions of the Department of Defense and strengthening relationships that will continue to benefit the United States Army Pacific. Mrs. Flynn's dedication to the Army, its soldiers, and their families throughout 36 years of selfless service is a great credit to herself, United States Army Pacific, and the United States Army." Signed, Christine Wormuth, Secretary of the Army. And now I'll read the orders for General Flynn. The President of the United States has awarded the Distinguished Service Medal to General Charles A. Flynn for exceptionally meritorious service to the government and duties of great responsibility over a 39-year career, culminating as the Commanding General of the United States Army Pacific. General Flynn's legacy and accomplishments will endure for years to come and reflect great credit upon himself, United States Army Pacific, and the United States Army. Signed, Christine Wormuth, Secretary of the Army. And now we welcome to the podium General Retired David Bramlett.
Ladies and gentlemen, aloha. Thank you. I won't go through all the distinguished visitors. You know who you are, and you are also very welcome. A special welcome, however, to this phase of the day. What a day. This you won't see this very, very rarely. A promotion to 4 stars in the morning, a change of command at mid-morning, and then late in the morning, a retirement, one of our great distinguished soldiers of our generation and of the Army history. I'm honored to officiate the retirement as an old soldier. Clearly, you can look at me, I didn't get the memo on dress. Also, I owe you an apology. This is me, David Bramlett. This picture in your program, those of you that looked at it, that's me 27 years ago. So you were not sold a bill of goods. This is David Bramlett 27 years later. Of course, Charlie, this is what you have to look forward to 27 years. Admiral Paparo, not so fast. General George, not so fast. 27 years ago, I looked like that. But it was wonderful to be present. It's wonderful for Charlie to ask me to officiate. It's a special day in so many respects. You in the audience have a very special part to play, and you played it this morning, and also the change of command, and also here in Charlie's retirement. Charlie and Kathleen have touched tens of thousands of lives, soldiers they have served with, and Charlie has led in war and peace. They would want to be here and honor Charlie and Kathleen and the family, but they can't be here. So all of you have that representational duty to represent the thousands and really, literally tens of thousands, over certainly in the hundreds of thousands of people Charlie has impacted over his 39 years of service. I hope you have a chance, or if you've had a chance, to look at Charlie's biography. It's a list of tremendous positions and with great responsibility and contributions. And of course, the Chief of Staff, General George, and Admiral Paparo touched on many of the accomplishments he's had over his career, and most recently as a commander of USARPAC. It's, in a sense, a list of positions. Those of you not in the military, is probably puzzling to some of them, but it's sort of like looking at trees and not realizing they're part of a forest. So what Charlie's bio lacks is context, and allow me to provide a little context on Charlie's career and a little bit of detail along the way. First, overarching, General Flynn and his generation represented by the change of command, Admiral Paparo, General Clark, General Flynn, and others of his generation, they have served in a unique period in our American history. They have served in essentially a period of continuous war. We as a nation have had general war, World War II, the Civil War, wars for our survival, and we've had limited wars, Korea, Vietnam, Persian Gulf War, the first war, Persian Gulf. But we've never had continuous war or protracted or prolonged war. Since 9/11, that 23 years ago, this generation of soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines have lived with either going to war, preparing to go to war, or anticipating preparing to go to war. It's unique in our history. We in the military understand that. The population writ large in our nation probably doesn't understand that stress. Actually, you can go back to Desert Storm, Desert Shield. You remember, we were anticipating a peace dividend with the fall of the Berlin Wall. Charlie was on active duty. As was mentioned in their bio, he was commissioned ROTC in 1985, and he went right to the 82nd Airborne Division. Tremendous grounding as a professional Army officer. He went in, reported to the division 85, 86 timeframe. The Berlin Wall fell in 1989. Now, I'm not suggesting that Charlie Flynn ended the Cold War, but I am just reporting the facts. As I said before, we were anticipating a peace dividend, but Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait, and in 1991, we were at war again. You may remember the president, I'm going to quote his words after the invasion of Kuwait. President Bush said, and I quote, "A line has been drawn in the sand with his decision to send U.S. troops." The first troops he sent 2 or 3 days after the invasion were troops of the 82nd Airborne, specifically 4th Battalion, Airborne Battalion, of the 325 Airborne Infantry Battalion of the 82nd. The first plane to land, had drawn that line in the sand, on that plane was Captain Charlie Flynn. And in a very real sense, that was a precursor to his career of being ready to go to war, preparing to go to war, going to war, coming home, and rinse and repeat. He deployed with virtually, with his battalion, virtually no notice. Let me tell you life in the 82nd. And he did several tours in the 82nd. Company commander, battalion commander, brigade commander, assistant division commander. The 82nd, in some units, and certainly the Rangers, have a DRF-1. It's an 18-hour standing start. You have to get on the Big Iron Bird and go off to wherever the country sends you. You live with that in the 82nd on these alerts off and on, year after year, month after month, depending on where you are in the window. In the 4th of 325, when is DRF-1? But imagine that living with that. Imagine being married to someone who lives with that. The bag's packed, you're in the DRF-1, you don't go anywhere without, by the way, 1985, we didn't have cell phones. You can't go anywhere that you can't be recalled, go back there and get on the airplane. Charlie Flynn lived that life for much of his career in peacetime and wartime. Let me talk about his battalion command. That was his first tour in the combat zone, in combat. He took his battalion, he assumed command of the 2nd 504 Airborne Battalion, the Devils in Baggy Pants, as the Germans called them in World War II, because they seemed to be everywhere. Devils in baggy pants. Paratroopers wear baggy pants. He commanded that battalion in Afghanistan, in Kandahar, Helmand, and areas around there. He took the same battalion, when he came back to Bragg, he took the same battalion back this time to Iraq, and he went into Baghdad City on Christmas Day. Imagine a commander telling his troops, his families, troops of his family, families of the troops, here's what we have to do. We have to pack up and go, but Christmas is coming. It is the plight of the soldier. It is the plight of Charlie Flynn and his family and his battalion, the 2504. You see, commanders have a very unique challenge. All leaders are not commanders. Commanders are the individuals that have to resolve the tension between mission and welfare of soldiers. We always taught, regardless of service, balance the two, mission and welfare of the soldiers. Take care of the troops you lead. Sometimes it's very, very difficult, as you can imagine. Imagine in wartime, in wartime. Who to go, where to go. Commanders have to make that decision. Charlie had to make that decision as battalion commander, both in Afghanistan and Iraq. He also later, in 82nd time, when he came back, he commanded the 1st Brigade, the Devil Brigade. And he took them to Iraq in 2007. So if you get an idea, and I'm talking rapidly, 2002, 2003, 2007. Now Charlie's wartime experience are unique to Charlie, but they're representative of that generation. As I said at the beginning, that's the context I'd ask you to remember. He fought with the brigade on a 14-month out of Talil Air Base at Basra, El Amara, and areas in the south of Iraq. When he wasn't a commander, he was principally in operations. That's a staff position. It's a superannuated COO, if you will. The operations is the coordinator for everything the unit does. So it's the most important, forgive me, the logisticians, personnel people, forgive me, but operations is probably first among equals. And he did that with the battalion, brigade, division, and he did so well, he was the operations officer for the entire Army, the whole Army. Not only operations, plans, and training. Imagine that. He was, one time, before he came out here to assume his USARPAC duties, He was the operations, plans, and training officer for the entire Army. Yes, there are no 40-hour work weeks in the Pentagon. Later in his career, he brought all that expertise, that leadership, and I particularly appreciate General George and Admiral Paparo talking about the characteristics of Charlie's leadership. Competence, enthusiasm, drive, expertise, all of that, team building, all of that, he brought out here to assume the command, command of USARPAC. Now, he had been here before as a staff officer, and he commanded the division. And I greatly admired his command of the division. I got to observe him and also Ron Clark, coincidentally, when he commanded the division. Let me tell you his boss's comments about Charlie commanding the division. General Bob Brown, who was mentioned, and I quote Bob, who was the USARPAC commander at the time, I'm quote, "He, Charlie, was commanding the 25th when I was the U.S. Army Pacific Commander. An unbelievable division commander, just an inspirational leader that understood the region. And it was just absolutely amazing what he did with the division. And then I was lucky enough for him to become the Deputy Commanding General of U.S. Army Pacific and carry me through the rest and do an unbelievable work in the Indo-Pacific. He had relationships and understanding of the region that is second to none, unbelievable, and he's really beloved by our allies and partners in the region." That experience, that partnership he developed as a division commander paid great dividends, as you heard from Admiral Paparo and General George here as the USARPAC commander. And of course, the presence of so many chiefs of service that are here present are a testament to Charlie's effectiveness in building teamwork among our allies and partners in the Pacific. He did a great job. Now, one unit that I would close with, the most important unit, his family. They served as well. And again, Admiral Paparo made it eloquently clear the sacrifices of the Army family. Kathleen and the children, Molly, Sean, and Tara, you bore the rigors of your dad's profession. The relocation, the schools, the movement, the making of new friends, saying goodbye to old friends. It's a tremendous challenge. It goes unrecognized by most outside our profession. But Kathleen, Molly, Tara, Sean, we appreciate, it's wholly inadequate, but the only words I can say on behalf of the audience and others, thank you. And now, Charlie, it's time to start the next 27 years. Hopefully, they'll be more kind to you than they have been to me, all kidding aside. You have made our Army, our nation, very much stronger than what you inherited. Through your leadership, your extraordinary achievements, your contributions, and competence at every level. All I can say is your impact has been profound and your legacy is sincere. Congratulations. Thank you.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it's my distinct pleasure and the first to say this, please welcome General Charles Flynn, United States Army, retired.
Oh, yeah. Okay, on the field, take a break, relax. Yeah, I don't know what the command is, but I'm retired now. I can just say chill for a minute. Oh, wow. Well, listen, let me start with aloha and ikomo mai to all of you. I'm touched by your presence here, and just thankful for sharing a moment to pass my thoughts and express my my deepest thanks to all of you. To Governor Green, Jamie, Mayor Blangiardi, former Governor Lingle, Sam, Ron, Chief, thank you so much for being out here and being part of this. To my brothers in arms from the region, of which there are many, thank you very much for being here. Thank you for coming in for really a short trip. Your presence here just reminds me of what I refer to as the Strategic Land Power Network, and that Strategic Land Power Network is a great counterweight to all the things that are happening out here every day that are dangerous and aggressive. And that linking of arms and that friendship, that bond, and that teamwork is, in my view, how we maintain peace, stability, protect everyone's freedoms and prosperity, and ultimately what we our highest duty, as Sam Paparo says, is to deter and to prevent a war from going on. And so the goal here is to have no war. That's what we really need. To so many other guests from all over the Pacific, I just want to thank you. I want to thank my ohana here from Hawaii. The 12 years that Kathleen and our family have been out here have just been amazing. In fact, I'm going to take a page from my Hawaiian roots today and do as the locals do and talk a little story. And with your forbearance, and since this is going to be my last speech in uniform, I'm going to ask for a little patience and a little time, and hopefully we have a little breeze here and some sunlight came. I'm known to be a passionate soldier. I love soldiering, and I may get a bit emotional here this morning, so I would just ask you to bear with me. First, while I'm here, and I did rise to this position, but if not for the hands of God, a good bit of luck, love and support from my family, and some great friends, a fair amount of grit, a lot of hard work, and a whole lot of, and another dose of luck, this was never supposed to happen. First story. There's a great quote by Maxwell Taylor that I read at every promotion that I do. And the quote is, "The badge of rank is a symbol of servitude, servitude to soldiers." And to me, getting another badge and being promoted had just a larger amount of responsibility. And that quote really, in my view, talks about the responsibility that we have. And then there's another thing that I read at reenlistments or promotions, because when you give the oath of office to either an officer or an enlisted soldier or a non-commissioned officer, those are important parts of what happens at that promotion or at the reenlistment. And I just did one the other day for a young sergeant. And actually, it's not the officer oath that has the greatest meaning to me, it's the enlisted oath. And in the enlisted oath, actually, the hair on the back of the necks of every officer ought to stand straight up. Because in that oath, they say that they swear to follow the orders of the President of the United States and the orders of the officers appointed over them according to the regulations and the Uniform Code of Military Justice. And the reality of it is, our enlisted soldiers swear an oath that they're going to follow the officers that are appointed over them in everything they do. They're willing to sacrifice their lives. Those two quotes, the first one about the badge of rank, meant responsibility to me. And then the enlisted oath had deep meaning for me through my years, and that was about accountability. Your personal accountability, your professional accountability to the very responsibility that you've been given. There are 5 interrelated things in my life where, for some unknown reason, God helped and He put me here. And these are the 5 things. Hawaii and Newport, Rhode Island, Army and Navy, surfing and death. I know that's an odd couple. War and fear, family and love. They are not necessarily in that order, nor are they prioritized, and one never really knows exactly where life, particularly military life, is going to take you, but all 5 of those things played a part in me. Hawaii and Newport, Rhode Island. From 1933 to 1935, at the age of 9, 10, and 11, my mother and my Uncle Frank were in a Navy family, and they lived over in Iroquois Point in Ewa Beach. My mother, Helen, was just a young girl. Her and her Uncle Frank, or my Uncle Frank, her brother Frank, were the son and daughter of my grandfather. My grandfather, Frank Andrews, was a Master Chief down at Pearl Harbor. My mother did her first Holy Communion right downtown at St. Augustine's Church. My Uncle Frank, who was again the son of a Master Chief, I remember him talking stories about going to the ships on Saturday and Sunday morning to check on the sailors. My father, his name was Charlie Flynn, although this was a negotiated thing between my mother. My father did not want a junior, my mother did, but they changed my middle name, and I was not Charles Francis Flynn, I was Charles Anthony Flynn. He was born and raised in Newport, Rhode Island, a second-generation Irish kid, son of Henry and Catherine Flynn, and a World War I veteran. My dad became high school sweethearts with my mother, Helen, and they later married. He was a sophomore at De La Salle High School in Newport, Rhode Island in December 1941, and I often remember my father saying, imagine being a sophomore in high school, World War II starts, and you know when you graduate from high school, you are going to be drafted and you are going to war. He was drafted in 1943. He fought in Europe during the Second World War. He later fought in Korea for 15 months. And he used to take a left on what's called Carey Street out of the Irish portion of Newport, Rhode Island, up to his way to Carey, to De La Salle High School, and that's where he met my mother. My Uncle Frank Andrews was a U.S. Navy retired captain who, again, youthfully lived in Ewa with my mother. And he was supposed to graduate from the United States Naval Academy in 1942. Obviously, that did not happen, because in December 1941, the attack here on Pearl Harbor changed the lives and changed the trajectory of Frank A. Andrews, my uncle, and Charles Francis Flynn, my father. My father, our family, my uncle, and his family went off to service of their nation and off to war, where they served for the next 3 decades. Hawaii, Newport, Rhode Island, Army, Navy, war, and fear. My Uncle Frank later commanded a sub-squadron right here at Pearl Harbor, and even later he became, because he was an MIT graduate in engineering in graduate school and had a doctorate, became one of the 25 engineers in Admiral Rickover's team to develop the nuclear navy. In fact, he was the squadron commander of the USS Thresher at the time of its tragic loss. Between these two families, with roots in Hawaii and Newport, Rhode Island, together in service in the Army and Navy, and tours in Europe, the Pacific Theater with my Uncle Frank, and World War II and in the Korean War, they somehow managed to have 21 children, 9 Flynns and 12 Andrewses. And as you can imagine, when our families got together in the summer, it was an event. And I can see Joe and Jack laughing right now because they probably needed to report it to the local police to keep a lid on things. More importantly, when we did get together, it was an Irish Ohana version of Hawaiian Talk Story, and those stories stuck with me as a young man. My parents would talk story around the table about life. They'd talk about their youth, They talked about their family and kids. They talked about their jobs. But then it always came back to my father and my Uncle Frank and my mother Helen and my Aunt Maxine besides them, talking story about Newport and Hawaii, Army and Navy, stories about their time in service, and storytelling about the people that they met while they were in uniform. The people, the moves, the places, the historic times. In fact, I was reading and studying about those wars in school, but it was through those stories and the eyes of those two families, one a soldier and one a sailor, that they had actually lived it. I got a front row seat to their ideas, their values, their selflessness, and their sense of purpose. Hawaii, Newport, Rhode Island, Army and Navy, war and fear. I did not realize until later in life, but those stories had a profound impact on me. I'm not sure if they were the exact reason I joined the military or the Army, because we had no money in that small house, and ROTC was a nice way to be able to pay for the university. And yet what I know is that those times and their words certainly impacted my calculations about service to others and service in the Army. So after being a self-proclaimed reluctant cadet and doubting whether in my early years whether this was ever really for me, here I stand before you 39 years later, where that reluctant cadet became the 233rd four-star general in the entire history of the United States Army. I'm stunned to be here. Thank you. I'm stunned to be here. I'm honored to serve. Humbled. Humbled by the chance to help our nation. I'm a surfer. Actually, these two guys are better surfers than me, truth be told. But surfing and death played a role in my life. Those are two topics that certainly don't seem to fit together, but they do for me. I have had two near-death drowning experiences that both involve surfing. The first was in 1973. I was 10 years old. We lived on Newport Beach. My Little League game was rained out. There were always boards in the back of our yard because I'm the 8th of 9. And everybody was gone surfing already, and I came back to the house, the place was empty. I was by myself, I was alone. There was a bad nor'easter storm. I grabbed a board, I went down to Newport Beach. I got out in the surf, my leash broke, the board was gone, I got caught in a rip, and I damn near died. I found myself on the beach later, throwing up. I walked home totally embarrassed, did not tell my mother and father, and it scared the daylights out of me. Again, I was alone. The next was 25 years later. I was a 35-year-old major in the 25th ID. Cocky and overconfident about my surfing capabilities, I went to leftovers on the North Shore. The surf was way too big. It was early in the morning. I was by myself. I went out before the kids got up. It was big. The board snapped. The leash broke. And I damn near drowned again. You see, the ocean is a wonderful place, but it is also both very unforgiving and unpredictable. Just like war and fear, unpredictable and unforgiving. I suppose those two incidents are a metaphor for the experiences throughout my career. Some of the harshest places are the most frightful, like combat. These are also where you learn the most about yourself, and you're better for it. So in a very strange way, the joy and exhilaration I get from surfing and the fear of death that I experienced twice before I even went to combat, I know that helped me when I lost soldiers. It helped me when I had to face my own fears. When you have to identify one of your soldiers in combat and then you have to call their parents or wives, knowing you placed them in those very situations, it terrifies you. Those events ground you. Those events humble you in ways unimaginable, and those events and moments, they fill you with fear, and you have to overcome them. And yet, from those very emotions, you also find the sanctity of life and all that it has to offer. Because in this military life, we are surrounded by wonderful people and soldiers that are strong, caring, empathetic, and determined leaders. All of these and so many more interactions left impressions on me in very meaningful ways. I often found myself seeing qualities in others that I wanted to emulate. I wanted to be more like other people, other leaders that I observed, and less like myself. Along the way, these experiences, our friends, our relationships, they changed my path. Just like war in the Pacific, right here in Pearl Harbor in Hawaii, changed the path of my father and my uncle and my family. My service gave me identity. It gave me a purpose, and it gave me a mission to get up and do every day. Last topic, family and love. My family gave me strength and gave me love. Today, and largely due to the last many years with our lives being incredibly busy and geographically separated from the East Coast to here in Hawaii, my family is together for a rare few days. And I want to publicly express my deepest thanks and love to my children, Molly, Sean, and Tara, for allowing me the chance to serve our nations and soldiers. I have many regrets. In fact, anyone who says they don't are full of it. But I have no regrets with your love and support. And I'm thankful for all that you have meant to me and Mom. And I just want to say that I love you all from the bottom of my heart. You are the single greatest treasure in my life, and that is by a wide margin. And I'm very proud of all that you have become, prouder of what you will do for yourselves, for your families, and for others. To Kathleen, one last story. As Dave mentioned, I had come back from Iraq on a deployment where it was another no notice, and we had gone out because the unit was unready, and I was in the 82nd, and we had just come back about 90 days before that, candidly not expecting to go back out again, but we did. And this is a story about a young man by the name of Sergeant First Class Clint Ferrin. After the deployment, I got back, and it was just after Easter. Kathleen said to me, "We need to go out to see the Ferrins." So we went out to the Ferrins' home, and the wife Melinda was there with two young children, ages 6 and 3. And they were packing their things up, getting ready to go. Clint was 31 years old, family of 2, and he was killed in action in March 2004. Kathleen and Melinda and I were in the home, but it was mostly Kathleen talking to Melinda. They spoke, they hugged, they talked some more, they shared some time with each other, and then we left. We got in a car, and we drove back to our house at Fort Bragg and to our family. Kathleen turned and said to me, "Do you know why I brought you here today?" I said, "No." And she said to me, "Because I want you to remember the costs of war. and the toll that it takes on these families. You see, Melinda and those two children were getting in their car that day, and they were driving back to Utah fatherless. That is the love of my life. Kathleen Flynn, dedicated to her family, to her community, to the soldiers and what they represented for nearly 40 years. A mother, a daughter, a friend, a nurse, a caregiver, and a woman with more heart and soul than I have ever met. You are beautiful to me in every way. Your grace, kindness, love for your family, for me, is endless, and I can never, ever adequately repay you, but I'm going to try in retirement. Oh. I'm going to end by saying that there is no force on earth that can beat us when we are a team together in unity and purpose. I am forever grateful for my time spent in the service of our nation, grateful for the sacrifices by so many others that have allowed me to succeed, for the warmth of the people and the aloha spirit that Hawaii has given to my ohana. Thank you. I'm very grateful to so many who have touched our lives along the way while I wore the nation's cloth. But most of all, I'm thankful for the opportunity to have played a small role as a soldier protecting our freedoms and our prosperity as a nation. It has been my highest honor to serve alongside with and for all of you. May God watch over and protect all of you and your families. May God bless this great nation of the United States of America. May God bless our military, our army, and its soldiers. Mahalo nui loa for all that you do and what you stand for. And as we say in Hawaii, a hui ho to all. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, at the conclusion of the ceremony, please remain in place for the departure of the official party. Join us now in the singing of the Army Song. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain in place for the departure of the official party. At this time, this concludes today's ceremony. Please join us at the Palm Circle Gazebo as we bid farewell and well wishes to General Retired Flynn and his family, and at the Hale Ikena, where General Clark and his family will host guests at the welcome reception. For those of you wishing a ride in a golf cart up to Hale Ikena, you can catch a ride by waiting at the fountain of the northern part of the parade field. Mahalo for attending, and aloha.